Hi everyone, Kay Brooks here to talk to you a little bit about getting yourself ready for embroidery. I want to talk to you about setting yourself up for success, being prepared to get this creative juices going in your embroidery room. And so how do you do that? How do you go about doing that? First of all, I consider embroidery a lot like cooking. When you get ready to make a recipe or cook something in your kitchen, oftentimes we go to our cookbook, our recipe book, and we also make sure that we have all the ingredients like needles and scissors and bobbin thread, obviously. So we want to make sure we have all the pieces necessary whenever we are cooking our recipe for embroidery. So with that said, I want to talk to you a little bit about all of the amazing products in the Floriani line to help you do this successfully. The first thing that I want to talk about is your actual recipe book. Did you know that you can go to rnkdistributing.com/Floriani and you can download this amazing workbook. This is free to you, and it has every one of the Floriani stabilizers, and I'm going to be referencing back to this in this video, which we're going to have in different segments. But this is my recipe book. I will pick each stabilizer, and I actually have a piece of that in here. And I have bits and pieces of fabrics that I've had success with in my workbook. And guess what? If I need to make some notes on the workbook, I can do it right here, just like you do in your recipe book whenever you're cooking, right? So download that workbook. That's a great way to make notes of something that worked, maybe something that didn't work. So you can jot all that down in your workbook. But again, that's at rnkdistributing.com, and we'll put that up on the screen, the exact link where you can download this awesome workbook for you to get started making your embroidery history in. So I love, love, love this workbook, and you can see I just put mine in a plain little binder with all the pages and bits and pieces of fabric. So do that. You'll be happy that you did. And I know a lot of you have our awesome Floriani sample packet, and that's a great way to just break that apart and put all those pieces inside of your workbook. So let's talk about thread. Oh my goodness, thread is so amazing, and Floriani makes the most beautiful polyester embroidery thread. It's 1,100 meters. And I'm sorry, 1,100 yards, 1,000 meters. And you can see we have just this beautiful collection of thread, over 360 colors. Plus, be sure that you take advantage of our trending colors. We do that a couple of times a year. We do spring and then we do a fall. And those are special editions, and they are absolutely beautiful and a wonderful addition to your sewing collection. Remember that this thread is color fast, so it is perfect for towels, beach towels, baby garments, that type thing, because you can even bleach it and not worry about it fading out. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about too is getting your garment ready for embroidery. So if you are embroidering something, I have this turned wrong side out. Let me turn it right side out here. If you're embroidering a baby onesie and you're given this as a gift, and that person that you give this to is so happy with how gorgeous the embroidery is, but when they wash it, the embroidery may shrivel. Yeah, so maybe that's because the garment shrank whenever it was washed after the baby had an accident on it or whatever. So my advice to you, if you're embroidering on a ready-to-wear garment, is to pre-wash it. I do that. I think it's just a wonderful way to set the garment up for success, so that wash after wash, it's going to look nice after laundering. So to me, that's very important. So do that. And I don't use fabric softener, and I don't use dryer sheets. So just wash it just in your regular laundry detergent, just like it would be done afterwards, and then the garment is ready for embroidery. I also do that with my fabrics that I'm going to use for applique, or I know this is controversial, but I definitely wash my quilting fabrics too. So embroidery is different than quilting, so keep that in mind. I know we've always been taught to not wash our quilting garments, so or our quilting fabrics. So I'll leave that one up to you, but as a personal preference, if I'm using that quilting fabric in an embroidered quilt block, I'm definitely going to pre-wash it. You'll be happy with the results, because if you're laying embroidery over all those fibers and then they shrink, they're more than likely going to be rumpled after the embroidery. So that's just a little bit of advice. You can try it and see if it works for you, but it's definitely a method that I do. So pre-washing, ironing, getting your fabric ready for embroidery is very important. Now, getting back to tools. I kind of got sidetracked off of thread, but I had to share this with you. Very exciting. How organized is your embroidery room? How organized is your embroidery area? I am so much more productive if I'm a little bit organized. So one of the tasks that I did last year is I jumped in there and I organized my thread. If you're like me, even though I'm co-founder of this company, I ended up using the same colors of embroidery thread all the time, because I just didn't have it organized where I could get to my different threads when I needed them. So we make in Floriani this beautiful thread chart, and it has all the colors listed in it. But what I wanted to share with you was something very exciting that one of our educators, Darlene, discovered, and it was just one of those, I had a V8 moments, and every row has 15 colors. Do you see that? So this is absolutely fabulous. So we designed a thread box. I'll have to show you this because it's so exciting. We designed a thread box with locking drawers. They don't fall out. I love that. And every box, guess what? Are you ready for this? Every drawer holds 15 colors. So you can organize your thread by row. Now when I'm doing an embroidery design, I go to my thread chart and I can see where the thread is, and I go and pull the drawer, and that's how I am so much more successful with using so many more colors of thread. And we love our thread, right? Right, so I am a messy demonstrator, so I'm gonna try to hold all this together here today. So be sure and get your Floriani thread chart, and you're gonna love these thread boxes that we have. It's a great way to get yourself organized. Now let's talk about needles. Needles are so essential. Several years ago, we brought out the Floriani line of chrome needles, and these needles are very special. They are made to last so much longer. They have an endurance that's amazing because of the chrome. Chrome has been around for years in the commercial industry, but we wanted to bring you, the home sewer, this line of needles so that they would last longer. They're not titanium, they're not going to shatter, they are chrome. They have that beautiful strength without danger of shattering. So you're going to love those. But what I wanted to talk to you about, we all love our embroidery needle. We use our embroidery needle, and I'll grab one of those here. Let's see. Here we go. We love our embroidery needle. Our embroidery needle is the most essential. It's made to not heat up. It stitches very long lengths of time without shredding the thread. That's our go-to needle, and it has a ball type point on it. They call it a universal. It's not actually not sharp, but it's not a ball point either. So it's kind of in between there, and that's our kind of a universal embroidery needle. But the embroidery needle definitely is the one that we go to the most for embroidery. But did you know that you can use specialty needles as well for your embroidery? And I love to teach this. If you're embroidering on leather or denim, or you're using a metallic thread, there are a number of situations. I want to show this little heavy denim jumper, this I would use an embroidery needle, a denim needle for my embroidery. So we have a wonderful size 12 denim needle that is just perfect for this embroidery over these heavy denim seams. So definitely take advantage of the different types of needles and you'll see better embroidery results. Whenever I'm doing, I know this is kind of a double style sample I'm going to show you here. This is obviously, as you can see, gorgeous metallic thread. Now remember, you do not have to use a specialty needle when you are embroidering with Floriani metallic thread, because our metallic thread is wrapped in mylar, so you don't have to worry about it shredding or breaking. The only thing that you want to remember about the Floriani thread is it wants to be set upright. Our thread loves to be run vertical. Okay, so remember that. I'm backtracking a little bit. I'm going to do that a lot today, so bear with me. You guys are going to be my seminar audience today. So remember to always run your thread on its bottom and run it up and over your machine. That's what it loves the best. So same's true with the metallic. But getting back to the needles, the metallic needle is for all those other metallics that are out there on the market, and it takes the stress off the thread. So as that needle is going in and out of the fabric, it keeps the thread from heating up and protects it very, very nicely. I want to talk to you too about the Microtex needle. The Microtex needle, if I am doing some really heavy satin stitching like in an applique design or monogramming on quilt fabric, this is my go-to needle. The Microtex needle is so fine and sharp, it won't poke large holes in your quilting fabric. So that's a really good one to have in your stash. I love that. And you can see how nice and tight these letters are here. So this would be a prime example of where I might use the Microtex needle. Last but not least, we have a gorgeous variety of needles. I encourage you to check those out. And at the end of this segment, I'm going to be talking about our apps, and there is a needle app, so I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a few minutes. But really, really important to have all of your needles in your stash. And then there's one needle that you just can't live without, and I really want to talk about this one just briefly. That's your top stitch needle. So a top stitch needle is like your fix-all. It's like WD-40 of needles. So it's if you're having an issue with a thread or with any kind of situation where you're embroidering, you're experiencing shredding or some kind of issue, go to a top stitch needle. It has an elongated eye and it's coated so that it takes all the stress off of the thread. So check that out. That is a really good needle to have in your stash. And you guys change your needles. I had one customer in one of my seminars tell me that she just sharpened her needle with an emery board. No, do not do that. So you want to change your needle. And I hate to say this, but sometimes we can damage needles when we're getting them out of the package. So it's really important to remember that. So when you are taking a needle out of the package, be sure and slide that cover all the way down. I'm going to flip this over so we can have a solid surface here so you can see this. Flip that needle case all the way down and then bend back and pull the needle out. Don't try to bend the needle to force it out of the package. You want to help the needle out of there as best you can, okay? So that's just a little tip there. All right, now let's talk about bobbins. At R&K Distributing, I came out with a line of pre-wound bobbins a couple years ago. It's in our Quilter Select line, and they are premium pre-wound bobbins. One of the biggest things I want to tell you about pre-wound bobbins is a lot of them have glue that they use to hold the thread on the bobbin. At R&K Distributing, we don't do that. Our bobbins are thermally bound. We use a heat machine to hold that on there, so you don't ever have to worry about that glue being down in your bobbin case. So they are premium pre-wound bobbins, and they come in 40 colors and of course black and white. But pre-wound bobbins are a definite wonderful thing to have in our sewing room, in our embroidery, around our embroidery machine, because they're fast, they're easy, but it's also okay to wind your own. We do make an 80 weight thread that's really good to wind your bobbin, and as Alex Anderson says, it lasts an eternity, so I love that. But as we know, you do go through a lot of thread in embroidery, so the 80 weight is awesome for that. So it allows you to get a lot longer embroidery time out of your bobbin. But I wanted to say this, bobbins can be bad. Bobbins do go bad. If you accidentally drop one and you accidentally step on it in your sewing room, it may be bad. You may have lost that bobbin. So what I do if I'm experiencing some thread breakage or shredding, I'll change my needle first. But oftentimes I'll take my bobbin out and just run my finger around the edge of it just to kind of feel and see, is there any kind of a burr? Take your bobbin out and re-thread your bobbin casing to make sure that it didn't pop out of the tension in the bobbin case. Also, but sometimes you may just have a bad bobbin, so toss that and put in a new one. Okay, so that's just, again, a little tip from the mechanic side of me, of things that I've experienced over the years. So definitely bobbins are an important part. We always think about the top of the embroidery, but sometimes there may be some things going on down inside the bobbin case that will affect how the embroidery looks. So that's important. Last but not least, I wanted to share with you tools. Have the right tools to be successful. How many times have you tried to snip a thread with a big pair of scissors and ended up cutting a hole in the garment or something like that? Always have good scissors around. And at Floriani, we make this beautiful line of embroidery scissors. We have some quilting ones and applique ones as well, but I wanted to share with you, this is one of my favorites. This is our, I'll come down here low so the camera can see. This is our curved tip snip, and so it's a squeeze and snip scissor, and so very quickly you can get up under the thread and snip it. So I love this scissor. It's really a beautiful tool to have. I'm just going to quickly run through these. Tweezers. Yeah, we need another pair of tweezers, right? But this is a special tweezer, and I'm going to show this further on in our segment as well. But this particular tweezer, you can see, has got that super sharp point, and I love this as a picker. You can actually pick stitches. You can flip your bobbin out of your bobbin case. You can also reach inside the tension assembly with this so beautifully, and it's also very good for picking up crystals, anything flat that you're trying to get a hold of. These are just amazing scissors, but they have that super sharp point, and I use that a lot to pick out stabilizer maybe that's close to some stitching that's delicate. So these are a very good investment as well. These are new. This is our precision lace cutting or embroidery stabilizer trimming scissor. I absolutely love them. We call them the Trim Safe Angler Scissor, and you can see it's got this little ball. I'll put this on my hand so we can see a little bit better. It's got a ball on the end, and this is beautiful for trimming away stabilizer like your cutaway. This is a baby onesie, and you can see that I can get right next to the lettering. But what's fantastic about these is because of that ball, it's not catching on the fabric below. So this is wonderful for terry cloth, baby bibs, anything where those loops may get caught in the bottom of the scissor. Has that ever happened to you before and you're like, what is that catching on? This will not do that. This has that wonderful little ball, so it just glides on the fabric. Absolutely a must-have for your scissors and tools to keep around your embroidery machine. So I love that one. And a lot of people don't know. I'm just going to quickly demonstrate this for you because this is, to me, this is important. Again, this is setting you up for success. We're doing a lot of applique in the hoop these days, and trimming away the fabric, and then the applique is done and we have little peekaboos around the outside of our stitching, which is disappointing. So it's not the machine, it's the trimming. So this is something that you need these little duckbill scissors. And these are small duckbills. They're not the big, large ones that have been traditional, which are fabulous, but this is the smaller version of the duckbill. And I love this because you can, I'm going to move this where I can get the camera angle in. I'm going to trim right next to my stitching without cutting into the base fabric. So that allows me to get super close to the stitching without cutting into the base material. So when you're trimming in the frame, that's important to have the right tool for this process. So again, these are our smaller applique scissors, and you're going to love them. They're absolutely essential. Definitely one that you need if you like to do applique in the hoop, because I do not like to do applique outside the hoop. So this makes it much easier, believe me. All right, last but not least, I just really quickly wanted to go over, this is our Educator's Favorites tool set. So it does have that wonderful trim safe angled scissor already in there, so that's fabulous. And then we stepped it up a little bit in the squeeze snip. This particular, I'm going to put this right here on this dark fabric so we can see, this particular scissor has a hook on the end. What I love about this is the tiny, tiny little jump stitches. This allows me to hook it and snip it. So it allows me to lift the jump stitch and snip it. So I love, love, love that tool. And then we have our precision tip trimmer, and this is a curve as well. So this is very, very good for getting down into super tight spots. So very, very important. Okay. All right. So that is an essential seam ripper. Okay. This is an absolutely wonderful tool for cutting out seams, for ripping out seams. You can see how nice and sharp that is. And this is not a traditional seam ripper. This allows you to pick up the seam and rip it out all in one motion because it is so sharp. It is actually just a very nice curved tip razor knife, and so this is an essential tool, so much faster than a traditional seam ripper. And I like that the bottom part of it will not cut into the seam. Have you ever done that? Have you ever cut a hole into the seam that you're trying to rip out, or into the fabric where the seam is? I've done that a zillion times. So this is really, really a fabulous tool to have as well. I keep using fabulous and wonderful a lot, but they are, all right? And last but not least, this is our stiletto. This is a diamond tip stiletto, so it's ground beautifully. It has a little bit of grit on the end, and so the grit on the end will allow you to push if you're wanting to ruffle. You can see the fabric there, just as I'm just barely touching it, it's pushing. But it also allows me to cut stabilizer if I want to use this to score the release paper on my stabilizer. A number of areas that you can use a stiletto, and again, very good for picking. So lots of tools. So you've got to have your area ready. You have to have your pantry stocked, as my grandmother said. So if you have all of your tools, all your needles, your bobbins, your threads, your organized threads, not just your threads, have everything right there at your fingertips, you are going to be successful, I promise you. And so with all of our tools in place, now let's talk about stabilizing. Today we are going to go into a multitude of samples. I brought tons of garments and things to show you, and I'm going to divide this into tearaways, cutaways, solubles, meaning water soluble, heat soluble, and specialty products. And I'm also going to be sharing with you our new line of R&K distributing products, which I'm very excited about. So stay tuned, and we are going to get started with this wonderful line of stabilizers.